Alright, so I've been doing a fair amount of thinking this morning. I guess one thing that I've been thinking about it, and I was wondering if I should say something or not, and yet it's so persistent that I think maybe I will say something about it. Like, it doesn't seem to me that FKA Twigs is dating Robert Pattinson so that she can be more famous. And I'm really pretty tired of seeing people accuse her of that. You know, I mean, first of all, you know, clearly they get along, right? So that means something to like spend time with someone, and you know, things get confused with people sometimes, and I think like constant media stories about people is not particularly helpful to their relationship, and I'm having such a rough time, and my boundaries are really crossed so often that I think things can get particularly confusing, especially when people are not respecting my boundaries, like I think probably Robert Pattinson isn't in terms of hacking my phone. A number of people are not in terms of hacking my phone. And since that's true, you know, and I'm quite serious when if they stop hacking my phone, you know, there's not only so much responsibility that I can take because for like confusion that they may experience after hacking my phone. Right? Because there's first of all, it's really hard to live without boundaries. It's really hard to live with people not respecting your boundaries. Like you can't, it's harder to make decisions when people are respecting your boundaries, just because it's so difficult to live at all with people not respecting your boundaries. You know, you're not allowed to have a thought, you're not able to have a feeling, you're not able to read about things you want to read about, you're not able to even like sort of like take notes about things you want to take notes about. I mean, it's a very bad feeling, and I'm learning to cope with it slowly, but it doesn't mean that I'm alright with it. I'm really not. So anyway, there's that, but I guess I'm feeling, and I have not been getting a lot of sleep, so this is the second night in a row that I really have not gotten a lot of sleep. I've gotten really very little sleep, actually. Shelter, I just happened to get placed in a noisy part of the shelter last night and the night before, so I haven't had a lot of sleep. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't seem to me that she's been, that doesn't ring true for me at all with her, you know. I mean, they get along, they've been going out for a while. I think he's been around long enough to know if someone is like really interested in him or if it's just a question. I mean, it's like these people are surrounded all the time by people who want to use them for various things. So you have to like give him some credit for being able to determine whether or not that's true. Also, like her style of doing things is she's obviously not trying to like copy something that's like commercially successful in some way. You know, I mean, I'm sure she wouldn't mind if she was able to make a lot of money. I don't know how much money she makes. Who is it that really minds if something that they do is particularly successful? You know, money in and of itself is not bad. Sometimes the way that people get it, and sometimes what people do with it is bad. But, you know, she's pretty individual, actually, you know, especially for somebody her age. Doesn't seem to me that she's really done very much that. I mean, I have not really paid that much attention to the stuff that she does, but from what I've seen, she's not at all trying to be like a cookie cutter version of a performing artist whatsoever. So, I mean, it's all of that stuff seems to me to be really stupid. And I also, what I'm reminded of really kind of by this, like kind of over and over again, I remember somebody once said to me that I had the charming notion that like, the world is out of junior high school, and actually 90% of the world is still in junior high school in terms of the way that they think about things. And it was a really kind of a shocking statement at the time, and yet it's turned out to be more true than I could. Sorry, excuse me. It's turned out to be a lot more true than I ever could have wanted it to be. And I'm thinking in terms of like stuff that these two people have been through, you know, like the racial attacks, people who are insisting that he should have stayed with Kristen Stewart just because they're so used to them in the movies, which I guess is a danger of dating somebody that you're in a movie with, especially if you're in more than one movie with them, and there's books and like all this other stuff, and it has to do with teenagers, and oh my god, they're never going to let you go, you know. You have to get married. You have to get married. You're Bella. He's Edward. Forget it. You can't break up ever, right? And then, of course, there are people who are overtaken by that. You know, they're over there. They're not able to separate themselves from the characters that made them famous, and they can actually like kind of live very sad lives if they're not able to do that. You know, I mean, what if they had decided that they were going to stay together you know, just because they felt like they had to, or because they were so immersed in their characters or so immersed in their fame that they just like, oh, we can't break up or whatever it is. You know, you can never tell whether people are really actually supposed to stay together or not. But say that they had actually gotten together, like stayed together and gotten married, and then of course people who were like couldn't live without them being together, you know, like teenagers or people in like their early 20s or whoever else it is that might be, you know, of the age group or like the mentality to be obsessed with it, like forgets all about it, right? When they move on with their lives, all the fans move on with their lives. Twilight becomes a thing of the past, and then you have this couple together who got married because they didn't know what else to do. You know, I mean, you can't let your fame run your life. I think that's really important. But yeah, so anyway, it's reminding me of this. I remember, like, I was not popular in middle school, not at all, right? I mean, it's kind of funny because when I started school, it was a little bit tough at the very beginning, first grade, and then I kind of did all right, you know, the second half of it, and then into second grade. And by the time I was pretty much all the way through second grade, I was doing fine. You know, I think I had straight A's, and socially I was doing fine. And in fact, I was doing so well socially that I remember I was starting to kind of make friends with kids in the grade above me. But then I skipped a grade the next year, and that's kind of when it all fell apart. And it doesn't mean that they were particularly bad kids, the kids that I went to school with. It just means that they were kids. You know, like if you're 8 and they're 9, that really matters at that age, or it did at that time. You know, and they just kind of, I just was not able to be where they were mentally. You know, certainly physically. I just, you know, and everything kind of got harder, and so they at least. I didn't really so much get tortured all the way through middle school as I just kind of got was way more alone than I wanted to be, you know. But I remember there was this guy that I got a crush on. We went to middle school, so we all went from a few of us. There were people from different towns. They went to different elementary schools, and then a number of us went to. There were 2 separate middle schools depending on where you lived, and I went to one of them. And so I met kids from other elementary schools for the first time, and there was this guy that I had a crush on, like all the way through 5th grade. And then of course you don't really necessarily forget your crush, right? And then at least through part, and you don't forget necessarily. I didn't, right? So at least through part of 6th grade, I was still aware of him in 6th grade. And then in 7th grade, he totally surprised me by actually asking me out. So, and I didn't even know. I was like, all right, it's like I didn't know you knew I existed, but that's fine. And then I think it was like weeks. So that's just kind of how it was then. You someone would ask you, will you go out with me? And then if you said yes, then you were her girlfriend, right? So, and so I think it lasted maybe like a week or 2. But like other kids were like so horrible to me about it. They're like, oh, you just want to be with him because he's popular. It's just like. You know, and that's, I mean, to say to the kids who say stuff like that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I was about to say something about how at least they say exactly what they're thinking, but then of course there are all sorts of adults who say similarly untrue and really mean things, you know, without like that they're thinking. I am sometimes that way myself. You know, I'm going to say I'm someone who minces words, really not that frequently, right? I've had to learn to kind of control what I say, but this is like that, you know. And I actually broke up with him. I broke up with him. I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, all right, well, I just felt so bad. I was like, all right, well, I didn't know what to do. So I just like broke up with him. And then that was it, you know? And that's, I mean, are we in junior high school still? You know, that this is what runs people's lives and like the decisions that they make and what they have to go through every day. You know, first you attack her because she's not Kristen Stewart. Then you attack her. Well, there are people attacking Kristen Stewart for all sorts of things too. You know, even though everybody screws up when they're young. You know, and the conglomerate has made everything insane. So that women can never feel good about themselves no matter what they're doing. You know, and that men feel like they have total license to do whatever they want all the time. Then, you know, she's getting attacked because she isn't or doesn't look white. Right, and now it's like, what, you know, you're only with him because he's famous. I mean, it's like, how many of those people would go out with him if they had the chance to do that? Like, who are these people who are writing to her and saying, because you're only with him because you're famous? I'm sorry, who are you? Who are you writing to this girl? Are you some kind of famous person who's like sitting there attacking her for like, oh, you only like him because he's famous? You only know who he is because he's famous. You only care about his life because he's famous. You know, you only care about it also because he's like famous basically for this like tween like, you know, this tween teen thing, you know? I mean, I'm sorry, this is ridiculous. Why don't you just, like, let these people alone, you know, let them live their lives? And yes, I did see that part of Southpaw, where Rachel McAdams was, like, asking the guy, I'm sorry, who are you? And I think I did recognize something like that from something that I said last year, which I thought was pretty funny, although, of course, there were things about the movie I didn't like at all. And there was something else I was thinking about. And I was wondering how I was going to approach things today. It's like, you know, Robert Pattinson, you're really ruining my summer. Like, I really am not, I kind of am just not really able to deal with like, romance for myself. I kind of really can't deal with it right now. I can't deal with celebrities. I can't deal with those questions. Certainly, I am not interested in breaking people up. I just have no interest in having that identity whatsoever. The conglomerate is really, 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 really stressful. In addition to being really bad, it's really, really stressful because I really have to think out like everything that I'm going to do, everything that I'm going to say. And it's really sad too because, I mean, there's so many other ways that I could have spent the last 5 years, you know, even in this part of my life in terms of like dealing in a... The thing that's hard about the entertainment industry too is that it's so the personal and professional are like, there doesn't seem to be kind of any division between those things, and so it's really, I think that would be very difficult to like sort out even in a good situation. The conglomerate has made everything such a bad situation, you know. I mean, it just seems like there don't seem to be any rules, there don't seem to be any regulations. It's totally male dominated. Even women like who grow up in it seem to be totally brainwashed, and I just don't, you know, I mean, it's an unbelievable crushing pressure and stress like every day. But I think one thing that I was thinking was that I've been thinking actually for several days now. I think one thing that it does, it so exaggerates roles, like gender roles anyway, the entertainment industry, that it seems to have entirely destroyed the idea that you can be just friends with somebody who is of the other gender, you know, that you don't that like it seems to really put this huge emphasis on the idea that if you like someone, you know, if there are two people who like each other, who like things about each other, and they both happen to be attractive, and they both happen to be, well, you know, he's way more attractive than I am, obviously. I'm definitely over the hill in more ways than one. I was coasting down the other side of the hill, you know, which is to be expected, which happens to everybody. But it's also like the idea of like people being able to develop friendships that don't rely on like, okay, like, are you ever actually going to like sleep together? You know, are you going to go out? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? Are you going to get married? I mean, like, that's not the only way to get to know someone. And if people operated like that in the rest of the world all the time, nobody would be able to get anything done ever. They would either be just like ricocheting off each other because of their impulses, or totally paralyzed all the time, you know? So those are some of my thoughts. I'm desperately tired. I'm so tired. You know, 5 hours of sleep last night, like 5.5 hours sleep the night before. Then the weekend I got a little bit more sleep, but then of course I got enough sleep to actually care that people were harassing me again. And then as soon as that happened, I got angry and I had to leave the crisis unit. But now I'm back to kind of where I was before, which is incredibly tired. So those are kind of my thoughts at the moment. And it's, I don't know, I had written some stuff the past couple of hours, like wondering what I was going to talk about, and that, I guess that's I think that's most of it, I think.